is one of stability, fair elections, and good governance. With easy access via international air and seaports, excellent highways, high-speed telecommunications, modern healthcare facilities, and a low crime rate, this is the place to bring your family, the place to live, the place to be. We welcome you to stay in an island that offers an enviable quality of life. It is an environment with a highly qualified workforce and creative minds. With a well-regulated business setting, competitive corporate taxes, and an expanding treaty network, we are open for business. We are consistently breaking new barriers and exploring possibilities. We grow families, spread joy, and bring light for those who cannot see. Our landscape is vibrant and brimming with opportunities as we build green, blue, and orange economies, not just colors, but who we want to be. Come, join us. For investment opportunities, contact investbarbados.org.
Welcome to the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025, the gateway to abundant opportunity, the platform for more, access to a continent with more makers and creators, more technology and manufacturing capabilities, more innovators and collaborators, more information and knowledge, a continent of opportunities for business in more markets and resources that accelerate progress and create space for more infrastructure, connectivity and networking, more creativity, production, and more deals for the people. Afrexim Bank, in collaboration with the African Union Commission and the AFCFTA Secretariat, brings you the 4th Intra-African Trade Fair, hosted by the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. Over 2,000 exhibitors, 35,000 plus attendees, 140 plus countries, $44 billion in trade and investment opportunities. Register now and enter the gateway to new opportunities.
The African Export-Import Bank, a proudly Pan-African institution with a vision to transform Africa's trade. Our mission: to stimulate a consistent expansion, diversification and development of African trade while operating as a first-class, profit-oriented, socially responsible financial institution and a center of excellence in African trade matters. Today, we represent global Africa with 53 participating African states and 12 participating Caribbean states. Our strategy: to realize impact through purposeful interventions based around 4 pillars. Pillar 1, intra-African trade and AFCFTA implementation. Pillar 2, industrialization and export development. Pillar 3, leadership in global trade banking in Africa. And Pillar 4, financial sustainability. Afrexim Bank, transforming Africa's trade.
My dream of becoming a doctor started when I was about 7 years old.
8 or 9 years old.
Since I was 3 years old.
My dream to be a doctor started when I was in middle school and I had a personal experience with my mom battling breast cancer.
SGU helped my dreams of becoming a doctor come true.
I was really impressed at SGU because the professors are very involved in your learning and they care very much about your growth as a medical student.
The academic advisors at SGU made me feel capable of taking on any challenge I had.
The support I felt from St. George's University has been incredible. I am where I am today because of St. George's University.
It's a busy world, and we all know the saying, time is money. Meet Candice and Oliver. They both have busy days ahead. Let's see how that goes. Candice is in a rush, off to the bank, again. Oh, looks like she didn't plan for traffic. Or this long line either. Now let's check in on Oliver. His morning starts a little differently. Using his phone, Oliver makes a peer-to-peer transfer and pays his bills, all while having his morning coffee. At the store, Oliver checks his finances with online banking. Candice? Still waiting. Back to Oliver. He stops at the bank to meet his loan officer. While waiting, he schedules a payment and makes a wire transfer. Wondering about Candice? Yup, still waiting. Candice could be like Oliver if she uses Co-op Bank's e-solutions. Make your day easier with Co-op Bank's swift, simple, and secure e-banking platform. Bank on your terms, from anywhere, at any time. Click, tap, done. Banking just got easier.
Welcome home.
I'd like to welcome you all to the inaugural session of the Aquarian Consult's AfriCaribbean Investment Summit with a country focus on St. Kitts and Nevis. Everyone of African ancestry, wherever you are in the world, is an African. And as we are global Africans, we must always come together, regardless of our location, and remember that we are one.
Defeat and retreat are not options. For this story is being written, and the only choices we have is if we want to be proponents of the next paragraph of the...
Ladies and gentlemen, the program is about to begin. I'd like to ask you kindly to have your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated for the arrival of the heads of government and our Governor General's arrival. Ladies and gentlemen, photographers, we are about to begin. Please have your seats. We are about to begin this morning's proceedings. Thank you. Photographers, you'll have 3 days to take beautiful photographs of our heads. Delegates, I invite you for the final time to take your seats. Thank you, photographers. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell. And I ask you to remain standing as we welcome our Head of State, Her Excellency Dame Cecile La Grenade, Governor General of Grenada. We now pay homage to our beautiful island, Grenada, with the national anthem. This will be followed by the anthem of the AfriCaribbean Bank.
The shores of the motherland and far beyond. With dignity we rise and we build a bridge for all. With integrity, respect, trust, excellence, commitment, creativity.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. What a beautiful way to start this morning. I invite you now to take your seats. Her Excellency Dame Cecile Grenade, Governor General of Grenada, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, His Excellency Professor Benedict Oke Orama, President and Chairman of the Board of Directors, AfriCaribbean Bank, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Honorable Kasim Majaliwa, Prime Minister of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Mia Amor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, Honorable Gaston Brown, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, Prime Minister of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Philip J. Pear, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, His Excellency Chief Olusegun Mazanjo, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Mahamadou Issoufou, former President of the Republic of Niger, the Most Honorable Percival Noel James Patterson, former Prime Minister of Jamaica, His Excellency Mr. Prudence Sabahizi, Minister of Trade and Industry, Republic of Rwanda, His Excellency Gibolo Fanga Mathieu, Minister of Trade and Industry, Republic of Chad, His Excellency Miligosa Obono Angu, Treasury Minister, Delegate of Equatorial Guinea, His Excellency George Ilombi, incoming President of the AfriCaribbean Bank, Her Excellency Ambassador Selma Malika Haddadi, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Her Excellency Dr. Carla Barnett, Secretary General of CARICOM, Dr. Didicus Jules, Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, Mr. Daniel Best, President, Caribbean Development Bank, Mrs. Kanoya Awani, Executive Vice President, Intra-African Trade and Export Development, Ministers, Governors of Central Bank, Members of Parliament, Ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the board and staff of AfriCaribbean Bank, heads of international and regional organizations, speakers, heads of private sector bodies, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished visionaries across the Atlantic. Welcome to the AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum 2025. We are gathered here in the spirit of unity, resilience, and transformation. From the sun-kissed shores of the Grand Anse Beach to the dynamic landscapes of Africa, this is more than a forum, it is a movement to reimagine, reconnect, and reignite economic cooperation in a world that demands nothing less than sheer brilliance. We are deeply honored by the presence of our distinguished heads of government, esteemed ministers, ambassadors, business leaders, who are all here today. Your presence here is not just symbolic, it is strategic. It signals a shared commitment to building bridges, not just across oceans, but across industries and investments. Now, you must know that this is not just a conference. This is ACTIF 2025, held in pure Grenada, the spice of the Caribbean. Now would be a good time to applaud. I welcome you to Grenada, where every breeze carries a rhythm, where every wave tells a story, and where every smile is a promise of a warmth and the beautiful memories that lie ahead. In Grenada, we spark transformation, we embody resilience, and at this conference, we will build legacies. The 2025 Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum is being held amid global instability, marked by rising nationalism and economic uncertainty, under the theme Resilience and Transformation, Enhancing Africa-Caribbean Economic Cooperation in an Era of Global Uncertainty. The forum emphasizes the urgent need for stronger strategic alliances between Africa, the Caribbean, and the diaspora. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored once again to be joined by you, the extraordinary constellation of leaders before us. And at this time, I'd like to welcome to the podium to bring you welcome remarks the Honorable Joseph Andel, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development in Grenada. Minister, welcome.
Thank you very much, Madame MC. Her Excellency Dame Cécile La Grenade, Governor General of Grenada, Honorable Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, and fellow cabinet colleagues, distinguished heads of state and government, visiting ministers, representatives of the African Export-Import Bank, esteemed delegates from Africa and the Caribbean, members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, senior government officials, members of the private sectors of Grenada and other parts, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to paradise. It is with great pride that I welcome you to this, the 4th annual AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum, ACTIF 2025, hosted here in the vibrant and resilient heart of the Caribbean, St. George's, Grenada. On behalf of the people and government of Grenada, I extend to you our warmest greetings and sincere appreciation to the African Export-Import Bank for its steadfast partnership and vision. Together, we are not merely convening a forum, we are shaping a future. This year's theme, Resilience and Transformation, Enhancing Africa-Caribbean Economic Cooperation in an Era of Global Uncertainty, is both a call to action and a powerful reimagining of our shared history. It invites us to transform the painful legacy of the transatlantic slave trade into a new corridor of opportunity, one that is rooted in dignity, equity, and mutual advancement. For centuries, Africa and the Caribbean endured the legacies of colonialism, exploitation, and systemic underdevelopment. At this point in our history, we stand as architects of a shared economic future, never as victims of history. This forum, therefore, is a bold step towards building a transatlantic economic pathway. In an era marked by profound global challenges, ranging from economic volatility and climate shocks to geopolitical tensions and supply chain disruptions, it is more urgent than ever for the Africa-Caribbean Partnership to move from intention to implementation. Resilience and transformation are not simply words. They speak about our shared journey For centuries, Africa and the Caribbean have endured, but our regions stand steadfast as architects of a new economic future. This is a new beginning for us to establish a union of two regions, once torn apart by the transatlantic slave trade, now reunited in purpose, in partnership, and in promise. In the wisdom of the Yoruba proverb, however far a stream flows, it never forgets its origin. The original Middle Passage was a tragic chapter in our collective history. It tore families apart, severed cultural ties, and left deep scars that still echo today. But here we are. At this moment, we are called to reclaim our narrative. We envision a new Middle Passage, not one of bondage, but one of boldness. A passage where people, goods, services, capital, and ideas flow freely between Africa and the Caribbean. A passage where our ports are bustling with trade, our youth are empowered through innovation, and our economies are interlinked through shared enterprise. Let me say, this is not just symbolic, it is strategic. It is about building joint ventures between African and Caribbean businesses, co-developing industries, and investing in each other's growth. It is about turning the tide of history into a current of prosperity. This forum, therefore, is a bold step towards building a transatlantic economic pathway, one that connects African innovation with Caribbean creativity, African capital with Caribbean opportunity, and African resilience with Caribbean determination. It is through the fusion of our talents, ideas, and resources that we will shape a vibrant and prosperous future. Grenada is proud to host this transformative event. We envisage a future where Grenadian nutmeg meets Nigerian cocoa, where Barbadian fintech collaborates with Kenyan innovation, and where African and Caribbean entrepreneurs co-create solutions for the global markets. A future where Grenadian spices are exported directly to African markets. African pharmaceuticals and textiles are readily available in Caribbean stores. Joint ventures in renewable energy, tourism, and digital technology flourish across our regions, and where our youth from Accra to St. George's collaborate as global entrepreneurs, artists, and change makers. But to realize this vision, we must be deliberate in strengthening the ties that bind our people. It is imperative that we consolidate partnerships, foster an enabling environment that promotes enhanced logistics, and create access to capital to build a resilient intercontinental economic channel. We must dismantle the barriers that still divide us, from limited air and sea connectivity to outdated trade protocols, to the absence of direct financial instruments, That is why Grenada fully supports the establishment of an AfriCaribbean free trade agreement, and we commend AfriCaribbean Bank for its leadership in facilitating trade finance, investment guarantees, and capacity building. We are living in a time of profound global transformation. Economic uncertainty, geopolitical realignments, climate crises, and technological disruption are reshaping the world as we know it. In this context, solidarity between Africa and the Caribbean is not just desirable, it is indispensable. Together, we represent over 1.5 billion people. We are rich in natural resources, cultural heritage, and human capital. But To harness this potential, we must act with unity and purpose. We must speak with one voice in global fora, advocate for fair trade and financing systems, and build institutions that reflect our values and aspirations. Through this forum, we must declare that we will no longer be passive participants in the global economy. We'll be architects of our own development, forging a new economic order rooted in South-South cooperation, resilience, and shared prosperity. Trade and investment are the lifeblood of economic growth, but they must be intentional, inclusive, and strategic. It should not be just about dialogue. It should be a commitment by Africa and the Caribbean. We must move beyond episodic engagements to strive for institutionalized partnerships. This means establishing permanent trade missions, creating joint chambers of commerce, and supporting regional value chains that connect African and Caribbean producers, suppliers, and consumers. We must also invest in information infrastructure with platforms that allow businesses to access real-time market data, regulatory guidance, and investment opportunities. Remember the cliche, knowledge is power. And so, by sharing it, we unlock the full potential of our two regions. Therefore, let us not forget our youth and women entrepreneurs. They are indeed the change, the present, and the future. Let us ensure that the benefits of trade and investment reach every corner of our societies, leaving no one behind. My friends, the wind of change is blowing across the Atlantic. They carry with them the voices of our ancestors, the dreams of our youths, and the hopes of generations yet unborn. Grenada is proud to be a part of this transformative journey. As a small island developing state, we understand the power of collaboration. We know that our strength lies not in our size or lack thereof, but in our ability to connect, innovate, and lead with purpose. To our African brothers and sisters, welcome home. This is your home too. Let us use this moment to deepen our ties, not just in trade and investment, but in sectors like education, technology, tourism, agriculture, and culture. Let us build bridges that will stand the test of time. To our Caribbean partners, let us seize the opportunity to reshape our world in the global economy. Let us invest in each other, support each other, and rise together. In closing, I wish to thank all the organizers, sponsors, and participants who have made ACTIF 2025 possible. Your presence here is a testament to our shared commitment to a brighter, more inclusive future. Let us make this forum one of a meeting of minds and a launchpad for action. Let ACTIF 2025 be remembered as the spirit of unity between our regions, united in purpose. Yes, we may sign deals and form partnerships, but let us rise together as global partners, creating new opportunities, embracing our dignity, creating prosperity, and fostering justice. May this forum be fruitful, inspiring, and transformative. Welcome to Grenada. Welcome to ACTIF 2025. Let the work begin. Long live Africa-Caribbean unity.
Thank Thank you, Honorable Joseph Andel, Minister for Trade, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Trade and Export Development. Reunited in purpose and promise. What a mantra. Ladies and gentlemen, we move to special, thank you. Reunited in purpose and promise. Thanks. We move to special remarks. We start with His Excellency Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Secretariat.
Honorable Governor General of Grenada, Prime Minister Mitchell, our gracious host, Your Excellency President Obasanjo, the former President of Nigeria, and Chairman of the Intra-Africa Advisory Council, President Mahamadou Issoufou, former President of Niger, Chairman and leader of the AFCFTA. Right Honorable Prime Ministers that are here with us today, my senior brother, President Orama, the Secretary General of CARICOM, honorable ministers from various countries, private sector leaders. It is indeed a pleasure to be here in Grenada, my fourth visit to the island of Grenada. May I start by congratulating you, Comrade Prime Minister, for your leadership and your vision and the contribution that you make to advance commercially meaningful ties between the Caribbean and Africa. Also want to congratulate my dear senior brother, President Orama. I cannot think of a better ending to such an illustrious career than to see the vision, the realization of the Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum. And so I want to thank you for your contribution and your commitment. My very first meeting with the Caribbean region was 24 years ago as a junior official. There was a meeting of the ACP in Brussels, Africa, Caribbean, Pacific. I really could not understand why we had to connect in Brussels as the two regions. I couldn't understand why we required an interlocutor in Brussels. A few years ago, the inaugural Africa Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum was convened in Barbados. And on my way to Barbados, I transited in London. The immigration officer asked me, "Where are you going?" I say, "I'm going to Barbados." She says, "Then what are you doing here?" I said, "That's a very relevant question. What am I doing here?" And so these two anecdotes, in my opinion, underscore the importance of this event. They underscore the importance of why we have to take very concrete steps to advance beyond historical ties and reflections. The forum takes place against a backdrop of unprecedented global challenges, the onslaught on the multilateral trading system, the onslaught on humanity itself as we see as we see a genocide unfolding in front of our eyes in Gaza. The onslaught on humanity itself, the onslaught on the multilateral trading system that for a very long time offered us certainty, predictability of open markets, as imperfect as it is. And so we are in a seminal moment, my comrades and friends, and that is to use and leverage on this challenge, on this period of a multiplicity of crises, to advance a very unique opportunity. That opportunity presents itself in integration between Africa and the Caribbean. And so the theme today, resilience and transformation, enhancing Africa-Caribbean economic cooperation in an era of global uncertainty. Not only is it apt, but it is also a strategic imperative for us, our two regions, to navigate these global challenges. This forum is a strategic platform to chart a new course for ourselves, our regions, and to ensure that we deliver on the historical and emotional ties. The choices we make and the partnerships we form indeed can help to unlock the potential that all of us recognize exists between our regions to build a future based on mutual prosperity. We have a unique opportunity to invest jointly in industrial development, invest jointly in regional value chains that will support trade between our two regions, to invest jointly in supply chain connectivity, air connectivity, and movement of persons. In this regard, I want to congratulate AfriCaribbean Bank for the $3 billion credit line that the bank has extended to the Caribbean region, which positions our two regions to achieve our ambitions and to advance on our relationship. We are now well poised as a result of this intervention, well poised to advance relationships beyond expressions of emotional and historical and cultural ties that formed over centuries, to commercially meaningful economic and trade ties between Africa and the Caribbean that have historically remained very, very low. And so all of us, my comrades and friends, have a responsibility and a duty to ensure that this ambition of integration, trade, and investment, that it is put forward. I dare say I want to add a third dimension to the integration, and that is emotional integration between our regions. I have done my fair share. My wife is from St. Lucia, and so I have this third dimension of integration has been underscored in my own family. The disconnect that exists is a legacy of colonial economic model, which conditioned our economies to export raw materials to the north and import manufactured goods, tying our economic fortunes to the vagaries of the global commodity markets. As a result, trade has concentrated in a few narrow set of lines, tariff lines, unprocessed goods, undermining value addition and industrial development in our two regions. This can no longer sustain. Yes, several obstacles continue to hold us back, including limited air and maritime connectivity, very high bilateral tariffs on processed goods, divergent custom procedures and regulatory systems that inhibit a closer market integration. More importantly, we are now actively working to overcome these obstacles and to build a robust transatlantic economic corridor that links our regions more meaningfully. The value proposition we present is a $3.4 trillion United States dollar market with a combined population of 1.4 billion people as an anchor for our two regions on trade and investment. And in this regard, I hope that when our leaders, that is to say, Caribbean and African Union leaders, convene in Addis Ababa next month, that this matter of trade and investment will be at the fore of their agenda. The AfCFTA provides a continental market of scale, underpinned by rules, investment, and industrial development. This anchor is a very important launchpad for future trade and investment relations. Looking ahead, the potential for deeper cooperation is considerable. Key sectors for growth include agro-processing, healthcare, tourism, energy, and other sectors. At its very core, Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum 2025 is a strategic extension of the AfCFTA and what we seek to achieve under the leadership of the Assembly of Heads of States and Government of the African Union. Working together, we can move beyond outdated colonial economic models and build a more equitable and resilient global Africa and an economic bloc that will support that vision. In this uncertain world, deeper Africa-Caribbean economic cooperation is no longer an option. It is a requirement for us to be able to navigate the challenges that I set out at the onset. In this last edition, under Professor Orama's leadership, we want to surpass the $4 billion of investment that were concluded at the last event. Our partnership must be anchored in the commitment to eliminate barriers to inter-regional investment, eliminate barriers to inter-regional trade, movement of persons, in order for us to see the fruition of a truly commercially meaningful partnership. I want to end where I started, and that is the observation that our two regions must no longer not continue to rely on others to have and to forge a mutually beneficial trade and investment relationship. We must no longer rely on others to provide a platform for us Africans to enter into a dialogue about mutually advancing our benefits. This edition of the Africa Trade and Investment Forum must be a shining example of how we, as Africans, can collaborate to forge a new partnership, to navigate along a new pathway in this context of a challenging global environment. I very much look forward to our deliberations over the next 2 days, and I want to once again thank you, Comrade Prime Minister, for hosting us here in Grenada. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for doing your part to integrate all regions, whether it is economic integration or by marriage. Our next speaker, before I invite our next speaker, please welcome Prime Minister of Barbados, Honorable Mia Moore-Motley. Allow me to welcome our next speaker, Her Excellency Ambassador Selma Malika Haddadi, Deputy Chairman of the African Union.
Good morning, everyone, and as you can see, I'm a deputy chairwoman. Your Excellency, Dame Cécile La Grenade, Governor General of Grenada, our host, Right Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government from the Caribbean and African countries here present or their representatives, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellency, former President Obasanjo of Nigeria, Your Excellency, former President Mahamadou Issoufou from Niger, Professor Orama, outgoing President of AfriCaribbean, Mr. Elombi, incoming President of AfriCaribbean, Your Excellency, the Secretary General of AFRICOM, distinguished delegates, esteemed business leaders, media friends, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. It is my distinct honor and privilege to address you today at the 4th Annual AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum, ACTIF 2025, and I bring you warm welcomes and greetings from Addis Ababa and from the entire African continent. On behalf of the African Union Commission and its new leadership, allow me to extend sincere appreciation and gratitude to the government of Grenada and the African Export-Import Bank, AfriCaribbean, for their visionary leadership and excellent hospitality in bringing us together in the beautiful city of St. George. I can confirm, paradise. This forum comes at a defining moment in history, a moment shaped by shifting geopolitical currents, challenges to multilateralism, global economic realignment, and unprecedented opportunities for collaboration. It is precisely in this moment that our collective resolve must strengthen, embracing unity, solidarity, and shared vision. We gather here today not only as representatives of nations and regions, but as one united family. I repeat, one united family. And let me recall here that since 2008, the African Union has declared the diaspora and CARICOM and the Caribbeans are part of the diaspora as its 6th region. We have 5 regions in the African Union. We have the northern, the western, the central, the eastern, and the southern. And the diaspora is the 6th region. And for those who know the governance structure, the way decisions are made at the African Union, they would know that each region, sub-region has a voice and a deliberative voice that has implications in how we are making decisions. So this is, I think, something that we need to reflect upon. So I was saying that we are gathering today as one united family, linked by common histories, aspirations, and destinies, as well as the boundless opportunities for prosperity and cooperation. Africa and the Caribbean community, together with our diaspora community, as I was saying, as envisioned by our Agenda 2063, indeed share deep historical and cultural bonds that are ripe for transformation into concrete economic partnerships. While our shared past has been marked by trials and tribulations, today we come together with optimism, mutual respect, and determination to transform these shared experiences into sustainable economic growth, inclusive development, I would even say co-development, and collective prosperity. ACTIF 2025 serves as a powerful catalyst to deepen these ties by facilitating increased and consistent trade and investment flows between our two vibrant regions. By nurturing commercial partnerships, enhancing information exchange, and creating meaningful opportunities for mutual learning, we lay the foundation for sustained and resilient growth. Africa and the Caribbean community hold enormous untapped potential, and our joint efforts here today will unlock these opportunities for prosperity of our people. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect upon the objectives of this fourth edition of ACTIF, allow me to emphasize the significance of key themes. Firstly, the establishment of an African Caribbean free trade area should be our ultimate objective. It is not merely aspirational. It is a strategic inherent imperative, especially now. It has the potential to significantly boost trade and investment flows, reduce trade barriers, and enhance competitiveness on the global stage. Our collective action in this direction will redefine how Africa and the Caribbean community engage economically to boost interregional growth and prosperity. Secondly, reinforcing the Africa-Caribbean Business Council is essential to ensuring effective collaboration between the private sectors in both regions. The Council must serve as an active platform for matchmaking, investment facilitation, and strategic networking, empowering businesses to form lasting partnerships and drive sustainable economic development. And these two first points are translated in aspirations 2 and 6 of Agenda 2063. Thirdly, we must harness the power of the creative economy, an area uniquely rich in potential. Our cultural and creative industries are not only sources of pride and identity, but powerful engines of economic growth. By promoting cultural exchanges, co-productions, and joint ventures in creative sectors, we not only foster economic resilience, but we build stronger mutual understanding and lasting bonds between our peoples. There is a need for the true reflection and correction of the narrative about our historical past and achievements, which continue to be distorted by our history being told by others. This needs to be corrected. This aspect is captured in Agenda 2063 once again under Aspiration 5, which also speaks to Pan-Africanism. Fourthly, strengthening connectivity through robust air and maritime links is pivotal, as highlighted by Mr. Wamkele. Efficient and affordable connectivity will directly stimulate trade, tourism investment, and cultural exchanges. It is imperative that our policy frameworks support the operationalization of our regular flights and shipping routes to bring our two regions closer together than ever before, and not being compelled to go to other regions that do not see the pertinence of us being there, like Europe. Distinguished delegates, our gathering here today signifies our collective commitment to chart a bold path forward. However, to achieve our ambitious goals, political engagement at the highest level is essential. Therefore, it is my great honor to inform you that the African Union member states, during the Mid-Year Coordination Summit held earlier this month, less than 3 weeks ago, agreed to convene the second AfriCaribbean Summit, scheduled to take place in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia, on the 7th of September 2025. This summit represents an unparalleled opportunity to deepen the political and diplomatic ties between Africa, the Caribbean, and our global diaspora. The summit represents a platform for African Union member states and the Caribbean states to engage and consider the discussions and recommendations emerging from this edition of ACTIF. It will allow us to reflect on ways to strengthen our collaborative frameworks, expand our partnerships agendas. It will serve as a vital political milestone, demonstrating our collective resolve to foster unity, collaboration, and solidarity in the face of global challenges. It is really timely. Ladies and gentlemen, today let us seize this historic moment to solidify and strengthen our partnerships, as I said. Let us ensure that our economic exchanges and political commitments forge paths of sustainable development, prosperity, and shared successes that benefit our people now and for the generations to come. Before concluding, I would like to seize this auspicious opportunity to pay a vibrant tribute to Professor Orama. For his visionary leadership, he has consistently supported the African Union and the implementation of Agenda 2063, as well as building bridges with our Caribbean sisterly countries, including through ACTIF. So we thank you, Professor Orama. We know that AfriCaribbean is also in good hands, and your legacy will be preserved and strengthened through the new leadership, through the new president, Mr. Elombi. I wish you fruitful discussions and successful deliberations. Together, we will build a vibrant and interconnected Africa-Caribbean community, united by history, trade, investment, culture, and our shared humanity and heritage. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Ambassador Haddadi, for your remarks and for reminding us that we are one united family. And now to bring your remarks from CARICOM, please welcome Her Excellency Dr. Carla Barnett, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community.
Thank you very much, Madam MC. Your Excellency, Governor General, Honorable Prime Minister, other excellencies of heads of state and government, and former heads of state and government, all honorable ministers, Your Excellency Selma Malika Haddadi, who preceded me. I'm looking forward to working with you very much in the preparations for the big meeting on the 7th of September. Professor Benedict Orama, President and Chair of the Board of Directors of AfriCaribbean, and all representatives of AfriCaribbean, Your Excellency Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to address you at this opening ceremony of the AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum. This fourth edition is a further demonstration of the collective commitment towards forging deeper trade, investment, and economic cooperation as envisioned by our leaders at the first CARICOM Africa Summit in 2021. We meet amidst heightened global geopolitical and economic tensions and supply chain disruptions, and the questioning by some of the value of the multilateral system. The theme of this forum, Resilience and Transformation, Enhancing Africa-Caribbean Economic Cooperation in an Era of Global Uncertainty, therefore guides us to recognize the effect of these challenges on our work to deepen the relationship between our regions. Last month, I had the honor to participate in the 32nd annual meetings of the AfriCaribbean Bank in Abuja, Nigeria. The theme of that meeting was Progressive Unity in a Fractured World, Building a Global African Coalition for Development. At that meeting, the CARICOM Development Fund and AfriCaribbean Bank signed a mandate letter to commence work to design and launch a green, resilient, and sustainable facility. I emphasize the need for this type of global partnership to develop mechanisms that foster inclusive growth, sustainable development, and economic and climate resilience. Here today, I re-emphasize this approach of building partnerships. ACTIF 2025 is also taking place as we prepare for the second CARICOM Africa Summit, scheduled for September 7th, as you heard, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The summit will be an opportunity to deepen our partnership through high-level political engagement on advancing interregional trade and investment, strengthening South-South cooperation, and operationalizing the Memorandum of Understanding signed last year between the CARICOM Secretariat and the AU Commission on upscaling engagement and linkages with people of African descent. We need to bring focused intent on making our partnerships inclusive and for our people to connect or reconnect for partnerships to thrive. CARICOM remains committed to work side by side with the African Union to ensure that the partners are broad-based and include specifically young people and women. Our collaboration extends to advocating for reparatory justice for the transatlantic slave trade and for chattel slavery. During the second International Decade for People of African Descent, our joint efforts are vital to ensuring global recognition and action on this historical imperative. In this context, the designation of the African diaspora, of which the Caribbean is a part as the sixth region of the African Union, provides an appropriate context to act in concert towards our collective advancement. This forum has been nurturing investments and bilateral cooperation in many priority areas for both regions, such as the development of transportation links critical for trade, tourism, and cultural exchanges. Another priority area is technology transfer, a key example being the development of a Caribbean payment and settlement system based on the successful Pan-African payment and settlement system. This mechanism will make it easier for large and small enterprises in both markets to conduct business efficiently. There are many other opportunities still to be addressed, some of which are being explored. This forum is becoming a foundation on which we can and will strengthen trade and investment cooperation and engagements, of course, in priority areas for both the Caribbean region and the African continent, moving from policy discussion to real action. We know we have common legacy challenges that persist in the current global distribution systems and logistics. Our external trade far exceeds our intra-regional trade. Our similar efforts at regional integration, the development of the CARICOM single market and economy, and the African Continental Free Trade Area seek to address this. We must also decisively open the door to greater trade between our regions. CARICOM trade with the continent must grow beyond the current levels of less than 3%, let me repeat that number, 3% of our overall trade, particularly with the uncertainty that currently looms over trade with traditional partners. CARICOM is committed to deepening its collaboration with AfriCaribbean Bank in key areas of common interest. To ensure consistent and collaborative outcomes, Steps are being taken to conclude a memorandum of understanding between CARICOM and AfriCaribbean so that together we can drive the partnership in particular areas, such as trade, logistics, and connectivity, to increase economic, financial, and trade linkages while bringing our two regions together in mutually reinforcing ways. Trade and development financing has a critical role to play in the pursuit of trade and investment opportunities and the realization of our common development goals. CARICOM therefore welcomes and values the demonstrated commitment of AfriCaribbean to partner in this critical endeavor. I was delighted to participate in the groundbreaking ceremony for the AfriCaribbean African Trade Center in Bridgetown, Barbados in March this year, a demonstration of the bank's long-term commitment to the region. I must take a moment to express the community's thanks to outgoing President and Chairman of AfriCaribbean, our good friend, Professor Benedict Orama. Professor Orama has been a driving force behind our partnership, and we are particularly grateful for the support of the AfriCaribbean towards a possible Caribbean Exim Bank. We welcome his successor, Dr. George Elombe, and look forward to working with him to carry forward the momentum we have developed together. The 2024 edition of ACTIF, held under the auspices of the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Honorable Philip Davis, was a resounding success, and I am confident that this edition, hosted by Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, will build on those achievements and catalyze strategic partnerships between the business communities in Africa and the CARICOM region. We have a lot of work to do together. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Barnett, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community. We continue with some video messages at this time. We first hear from Her Excellency Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. She will be followed by His Excellency Yemi Osinbajo, Vice President of Federal Republic of Nigeria.
This year's African Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum comes at a tenuous moment for the global economy and for the SMEs around the world, amid tariff escalations, a changing climate, and growing levels of fragility and conflict. But we can't just wait to see what decisions are taken elsewhere or what new crises will emerge on the horizon. We can and must act together, which is why I want to give you a number and then set out a few of the opportunities and hurdles for getting there. That number is $2.1 billion. That's how much trade between Africa and the Caribbean could grow in 5 years if trade barriers are slashed and investments are made in key sectors, according to our research with the AfriCaribbean. Sectors like minerals and metals, processed food and animal feed, manufactured products, tourism, transport, and the creative industries, where ITC and the AfriCaribbean are now gearing up to launch targeted interventions to boost exports, enable diversification, and ensure small businesses have what they need to compete. But we're also talking about far more than just a number. We're talking about an opportunity to change the terms for how our regions engage with one another and with the global economy at large. A chance to build on our deep cultural connections and restore some of what has been lost to the more painful moments of our region's shared history. That's what events like ACTIF are helping make possible. I want to thank our partners at the AfriCaribbean for their leadership in creating this extraordinary forum and for raising the bar every year. And I want to thank the government of Grenada for hosting this year's edition and spurring us all to keep going further and faster together. Every delay or setback we face means leaving SMEs and their communities exposed to the instabilities in the international trading system. which is why strengthening Afro-Caribbean trade ties and value chains can't wait. And that's what I hope we can take home with us from ACTIF 2025. Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the world can no longer afford to waste the economic potential of Africa and the Caribbean. For too long, systemic barriers have prevented these regions from realizing their full potential. These regions possess everything needed for prosperity: abundant resources, young populations bursting with talent, cultures that have shaped global innovation. Yet, they remain locked out of the rooms where economic rules are written. Economic growth reaches 3.5% in Africa and over 2% in the Caribbean. Even so, both regions are facing a $1.5 trillion financing gap for the Sustainable Development Goals. Vital sectors such as renewable energy, agriculture, and tourism are the first to feel the effects. At the same time, debt burdens are crushing fiscal space, preventing public investment and stalling progress. Changing course demands a massive investment push. The recently adopted Severe Commitment sends a strong signal and a pathway forward for financing development and the SDGs. This commitment specifically addresses the international financial architecture that has long excluded developing nations from fair access to capital. This is especially urgent in an era of uncertain and turbulent trade. Yet within this challenge lies our greatest opportunity: each other. South-South cooperation is increasingly vital, and the numbers reveal how much potential remains unrealized. Trade between Africa and the Caribbean represents less than 1% of the total in both regions. This is untapped potential waiting to be unleashed. By strengthening trade ties, we can attract more investment, diversify business partnerships, and create more opportunities for the people of both regions. Multilateral and public development banks have a vital role to play by unlocking finance, and yes, but also in strengthening cross-regional ventures. AfriCaribbean Bank is demonstrating this vision boldly. Through its Caribbean strategy, the bank has committed nearly $2 billion in credit approvals, a signal it is committed to building a bridge of joint prosperity across the Atlantic. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment for half measures has passed. Action is a question of justice and equity for both regions. The United Nations stands with Africa and the Caribbean as they assert their rightful place in global economic governance as equals and as architects of a system that works for everyone. Together, I believe we can build a more just and resilient global economy, not only for the people of Africa and the Caribbean, but for everyone, everywhere. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me thank you, President Benedict Oramah, GCON, for the kind invitation to make these remarks and to congratulate you on the remarkable success of the 32nd Annual General Meeting of the Bank in Abuja in June, and your preferment to the rank of Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is your vision and hard work that has made a real discussion of the prospects of Afro-Caribbean economic collaboration possible today. Well done indeed. And it is for me a singular honor to join you all today at this pivotal forum, one that speaks not just to trade and investment, but to our shared destiny as peoples of the African and Caribbean regions. In an era that is marked by turbulence, from economic shocks to climate extremes, resilience and transformation are not mere buzzwords. They are imperatives. Some may ask, perhaps quietly, why does Africa need the Caribbean? After all, the Caribbean, with a population of just over 45 million people, may seem modest compared to Africa's 1.4 billion people. But the answer seems to me to be quite clear. Size is not a measure of significance. Strategy is. And the Caribbean is strategic. Africa and the Caribbean are natural partners. We are family, bound by history, culture, struggle, and spirit. From Accra to Kingston, Dakar to Port of Spain, Our people share rhythms, they share their arts, and a resilient heritage forged in resistance and creativity. This cultural kinship is not a sentimental relic. It is a geopolitical asset, a platform for solidarity and cooperation in the global forum. From the UN General Assembly to the WTO and the many climate summits, our shared African ancestry positions the Caribbean as Africa's sixth region, a status that is now recognized by the African Union. This bond must now be activated, not just in the history books or music festivals, but in investment, in trade, in technology, and policy innovation. First is location. Geography, too, is destiny. The Caribbean lies at the heart of the Americas, within shipping reach of North, Central, and South America. For African firms, this makes the Caribbean a launchpad to US and Latin American markets, a transshipment hub for the Atlantic trade, and a partner in creating logistics and digital corridors that shorten the distance between our continents. As the world fragments into protectionist blocs and supply chains recalibrate, proximity matters more than ever. The Caribbean can help Africa diversify, risk, and reach new shores. Also, the Caribbean today houses a financial and services powerhouse. Several Caribbean nations, Barbados, the Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, punch above their weight in financial and professional services, from offshore investment vehicles to insurance to arbitration and hospitality excellence. The Caribbean can be a services ally for African enterprises and governments. Indeed, AfroExim's decision to establish a presence in Bridgetown is no coincidence. It is a sign that the Caribbean is more than a destination. It's an enabler of global trade and finance. Then there is our shared vulnerability, the climate crisis, presenting an opportunity for a shared voice. Caribbean states are among the world's most climate vulnerable regions. Rising seas, droughts, hurricanes, and floods are no longer mere seasonal events. They are existential threats. But in this crisis lies a shared agenda: joint advocacy for climate justice and loss and damage financing, shared investments in renewable energy, in resilient infrastructure and blue economy projects, a common front in shaping and reshaping the global financial architecture, from SDR allocations and reallocations to multilateral lending terms. Today, we can make the case that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a reason for priority in global resource allocation. And of course, there are also our natural synergies in culture, in tourism, and the creative economy. We are two of the most culturally rich regions on the face of the earth. The world dances to our drums, eats our food, reads our poets, and flocks to our beaches. It is time to do more together, building joint tourism circuits, co-investing in creative content, exporting African films to Caribbean cinemas, and Caribbean music to African airwaves. Let us build Afro-Caribbean cultural industries that generate jobs, pride, and shared prosperity. Then there is diplomacy and a South-South voice. Though small in size, the Caribbean wields disproportionate diplomatic influence. As members of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, G77, and the Commonwealth, Caribbean states often stand as vocal allies of Africa, championing reform of the global trading system, advocating debt relief, and pressing for equitable vaccine access during the pandemic, and they are effective. I visited Barbados for the first time this year. One of the places I wanted to visit was Bridgetown, its capital city. Why? One of the boldest and most thoughtful initiatives to reimagine the global financial architecture in recent history is named after the city, the Bridgetown Initiative. I found Bridgetown an incredibly tiny place. So is Barbados. But through the Bridgetown Initiative, Prime Minister Mayor Motley has reshaped the terms of the global debate, reminding us that leadership is not about the size of your GDP or land area. It is the scale of your vision, courage, and resilience. So Africa has worthy partners in our Caribbean siblings, and this alliance of purpose must now extend into structured political and economic cooperation, including mutual visa waivers, double taxation treaties, and trade protocols that enable easier movement of goods, capital, and people. We have in the Caribbean a market for African goods and talent. The Caribbean imports much of what Africa produces: tea, cocoa, textiles, pharmaceuticals, and fertilizers. Yet African exports remain under 1% of Caribbean imports. The potential for growth is enormous. Moreover, as Caribbean states face talent shortages in healthcare, in education, and technology, African professionals can more intentionally help fill those gaps, bringing not just skills, but kinship. So let us be clear, the Caribbean is not peripheral. It is pivotal. It is a cultural cousin whose diaspora opens doors worldwide. It's a gateway to new markets, a services and finance partner, a climate ally, a shared voice in shaping a more just world order. So at this forum, let us move from rhetoric to results, from history to the highways of commerce, from diplomacy to digital integration, from shared pain to shared purpose. In this age of fragmentation, the African-Caribbean bond is not just symbolic, it is strategic. It's not just cultural, it is commercial. And it's not just historical, it is the future. Let us build it boldly together. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much. From shared pain to shared purpose. I like that. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to insert that our first video was from Pamela Cook Hamilton. She is the Executive Director of International Trade Center. And now I would like to invite you to view a special video highlighting the potential of Africa and the Caribbean.
One Africa. Amid global divisions, we unite. Global divisions are deepening. Isolation and protectionism taking center stage. Geopolitical and economic tensions in the ascendancy. Yet global Africa is rising, finding strength in unity to redefine an ill-fated past and chart a common future. Colonial legacies in Africa and the Caribbean extracted wealth from our continent, entrenching divisions and our enduring economic underdevelopment. Yet today, the pains of the past have become the driving force behind our collective self-determination. We are reinventing the Middle Passage. From the declaration of the diaspora as Africa's 6th region in 2008 to the historic Africa-Caribbean Economic Summit in 2021, global Africa is building momentum. 2 billion Africans worldwide are shaping their collective economic destiny. One culture. From aspiration to action. Through its Caribbean office in Barbados, the Global Africa Gateway in New York, and the AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum, ACTIF, Afreximbank is making this real. ACTIF is building bridges, converting that perverse middle passage into a new one, defined by economic opportunities. Across its first 3 editions, ACTIF has already generated over $6.5 billion in deals and welcomed over 6,000 delegates. This same spirit inspired the first direct flights from Nigeria to Jamaica in 2020 and the Africa CARICOM Heads of State Summit in 2021. And the momentum continues. One goal. A resilient future beckons. In its first 2 years, the AfriCaribbean Caribbean office in Barbados has approved over $700 million in critical support across the CARICOM region. Now, African Capital is transforming the fortunes of Africans across the world with investments in Barbados, the Bahamas, Guyana, Grenada, St. Kitts, Suriname, and elsewhere, placing our economic fate in our own hands. Today, 13 CARICOM states have joined their fellow 54 African states in participating states of AfriCaribbean to chart a new chapter in shared prosperity. Africa and the Caribbean are working toward an AfriCaribbean trade and investment framework to accelerate common trade and economic transformation. Construction work on the AfriCaribbean African Trade Center in Barbados has begun. A CARICOM payment and settlement system has been introduced to redefine intra-Caribbean payments. A CARICOM Exim Bank is on the horizon. An era of AfriCaribbean financial integration is dawning. The impact is generational. The vision is inclusive. The momentum is unstoppable. This is the promise of global Africa. This is ACTIF 2025.
AfriCaribbean continues to champion the economic transformation of global Africa, supporting youth engagement through Caribbean internship programs that foster cultural and economic ties. As we continue to ignite the flame of ACTIF 2025, it is my honor to welcome our first keynote speaker, a visionary leader whose leadership has shaped the path of regional and international cooperation. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in giving a warm welcome to Professor Benedict Oke-Orama, President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of the African Export-Import Bank.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony. Your Excellency, the Governor General of Grenada, the Honorable Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, our host, Honorable Prime Ministers, Your Excellencies, former President Obasanjo and Yusufu, the Honorable former Prime Minister of Jamaica, the P.J. Patterson, Your Excellency, Carla Burnett, the Secretary General of the CARICOM Secretariat, Your Excellency, Ms. Emma Haddadi, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Wankele Mene, the Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies, may I humbly request to stand on the very well-established protocol earlier this morning. During the last week of June, about 8,000 people, mostly from continental Africa, the Caribbean, and the wider global Africa, assembled in Abuja, Nigeria, to attend the 32nd annual meeting of the AfriCaribbean Group. They used the occasion to reflect on the place of the people of African descent and the global South in the rapidly evolving and hostile New World Order. There was a convergence of views that in a fragmented and crisis-ridden world, the best pathway forward for Africans and the global South was through the pursuit of collective self-reliance, with our institutions leading the way. I seize this unique opportunity to extend our profound gratitude to member states of the CARICOM for the strong support and visibility at the Abuja event. Special thanks to Honorable Prime Ministers Jacob Mitchell, Philip Davis, Dr. Terence Michael Drew. We also like to thank Her Excellency Secretary General Carla Barnett, the Honorable P.J. Patterson, former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Dr. Daniel Best, President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Mr. Rodinard Suma, the CEO of the Caribbean Development Fund, as well as the high-powered delegation of public officials and corporate leaders from the Caribbean who joined us on that occasion. I was particularly delighted and highly honored as that event marked my last AfriCaribbean Group annual meetings as the president and chairman of the board of directors of the bank. Today, about a month from that event, many from the continent have crossed the Atlantic to assemble here in St. George's, not only to deepen the roots of the seed we planted 3 years ago in Barbados, but also to put more flesh on the skeleton of the consensus we began to form in Abuja. Honorable Prime Ministers, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our gathering here is not ephemeral, but rather rooted in centuries of shared history and ancestry. Here in Grenada, we find traces of the tribes of Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. Interestingly, the Akan folklore, which tells the story of Anansi, the spider, is also told here in Grenada. These realities remind us constantly that despite the distance and many years of separation, the cultural ties and shared economic interests run deep and inerasable. Grenada provides the calm and serene environment required to concentrate our minds on the important issues that confront us today as a people. It is on that note that I welcome you all to the 4th AfriCaribbean Trade and Investment Forum. We are deeply grateful to our dear brother and chief host, the Honorable Prime Minister Jacob Mitchell, for his bold leadership in agreeing to host this event. We are thankful to him, his government, and the people of Grenada, and also the Governor General, for the warm hospitality we have received since arriving here in St. George's. I'm sure I speak for all of us from the motherland when I say that we feel totally at home here in St. George's. Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this year's forum is significant to me personally, as it marks the last time I will be addressing you on this platform as President of AfriCaribbean Bank. It therefore affords me the opportunity to review the progress we've made since we collectively decided to turn the iniquities of the Middle Passage into a shared engine of prosperity built by us and for us. In October 2021, when I visited our dear sister, Honorable Prime Minister Mia Motley in Barbados, to discuss the necessity of moving away from political declarations, sloganeering, and motivating songs into concrete action towards realizing the long-held aspiration of strengthening Africa-Caribbean trade and investment ties. I left Barbados totally convinced that the key to unlocking that door, jammed for decades, had finally been found. And as I subsequently traveled, I engaged across CARICOM states, from Grenada to Guyana, St. Lucia to St. Kitts and Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda to the Bahamas, Belize to St. Vincent and Grenadines, and Jamaica to Suriname. I found replicas of the same key, all tuned to the same goal. That is why we've made so much progress within such a very short period. Your Excellencies, Honorable Prime Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in just over 3 years, our partnership has yielded tangible historical results. With Jamaica having signed the partnership agreement a few weeks ago, 13 of the 14 independent CARICOM member states are participating in the partnership agreement amongst themselves and between them and AfriCaribbean. 11 of these states have ratified the agreement, providing the bank a solid legal foundation to operate, support, and invest in their economies. This is not merely a bureaucratic milestone. It is a sovereign declaration that the CARICOM states see in Africa not just their past, but also their future. Besides, we've established a fully functional regional office in Barbados, staffed by committed professionals drawn from Africa and this region, and implementing a growing pipeline of deals. But we did not stop there. We are building the AfriCaribbean Africa Trade Center in Bridgetown, an almost $200 million architectural symbol of the bank's deep and unshakable commitment to the Caribbean. With twin towers, this center would host innovation labs, digital trade platforms, SME incubation center, a world-class hotel, as well as conferencing and training facilities. All designed to make the center a hub for Africa-Caribbean trade and investments, bridging the information and financing gap that currently stand in the way we do business. So in less than 3 years from now, AfriCaribbean flag will be hoisted high above the skies of Barbados and the Caribbean. Reminding us of our beloved Pan-African brave heroes, Marcus Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah, Bob Marley, and the clarion call in our anthem that we must fight for the now and posterity. These notable steps are yielding significant results that touch the lives of our people in various ways. To date, our approved financing limit to the Caribbean has increased to $3 billion following the recent accession of Jamaica to the partnership agreement. This in the pipeline presently amount to over $2.5 billion across various strategic sectors. And we have approved already slightly over $700 million in just 2 years. Here in Grenada, we are co-financing a world-class tertiary hospital, estimated at the cost of about $250 million. Which we hope will convert the country into a regional hub for medical tourism. Also in Grenada, we are also financing investments by Orascom Group in the luxury tourism, directly boosting Africa-Caribbean investments while supporting improvements in tourism infrastructure in the country. In St. Lucia, we are helping to rebuild schools destroyed by climate events, thereby easing learning conditions for young school children. In the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, we are enabling SME development, road infrastructure, and a permanent exhibition center through multiple transactions amounting to about $500 million in aggregate. In St. Kitts and Nevis, we've unlocked trade finance support through local banks. In Suriname, AfriCaribbean is the coordinator and the mandated lead arranger of the $1.7 billion facility for the state oil company Start Soli, which will be used to acquire 20% interest in the Grand Mogul offshore oil field being operated by Total SA. AfriCaribbean is contributing an amount of $500 million in the deal and expects to be an oil lifter through its trading subsidiary called ADMIN, which will enable the sale of the crude to refineries in Nigeria and Angola, also financed by AfriCaribbean. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think we have to be deliberate about all these things. These are not the times you use your resources and say you are doing tenders. If you want to promote trade, you prefer your people. Because we are talking about air links. It is when we ship crude from Guyana to Nigeria, Angola, and ship refined products back that we can see movement of people. And we will not need to beg for airlines to fly. They will follow the money. In Barbados, AfriCaribbean financed the redevelopment of a sports facility that will also double as an arena for hosting creative events. The bank is also currently considering deals worth about $400 million across various sectors of the Barbadian economy. Honorable Prime Ministers, Your Excellencies, we must shift from the era where our commodities build economies other than ourselves. We are the only people who trade commodities, but those who trade them are others and not us. In this regard, our AfriCaribbean is proactively supporting Guyana and Suriname, two countries in the region with significant oil and gas discoveries, with financing and technical assistance programs to support the creation of local capacity, ensuring significant local participation in the oil and gas sector. In Guyana, we are supporting local content development in the oil sector with a proposed $1 billion facility. In Suriname, we are working with the government and the state oil company to also launch a multi-billion US dollar local content support program. AfriCaribbean will finance and support these programs using lessons learned across Africa and with expertise already well developed in Nigeria, Egypt, and Ghana. Your Excellencies, Honorable Prime Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, an era of declining development assistance to our economies, coupled with the exit of international banks, and the imperative to build our economies using our own resources and institutions, we must develop our own institutions that are capable of financing our development. Consequently, we are working with the CARICOM Secretariat to establish the Caribbean Exim Bank, an institution that we hope will catalyze trade and industrial development in the region, just as our AfriCaribbean has done in Africa. We provided the grant financing for the feasibility study, which is currently ongoing. We are also working with our shareholders, Caribbean Development Fund, to launch a groundbreaking initiative called the Growth, Resilience, and Sustainability Fund. The fund aims to mobilize alternative financial resources and leverage public access to finance large-scale adaptation projects in the CARICOM, addressing fiscal constraints while also fostering economic growth and climate resilience. By raising $250 million through a coalition of financial institutions, This fund will empower public sector projects that support the livelihoods of citizens and strengthen communities against climate challenges. A grant financing had already been provided to the Caribbean Development Fund to support the development work for this fund. And when the studies are completed, AfriCaribbean and its fund, FEDA, will support the development and implementation of the strategy that we have been created. You agree with me that efficient and low-cost intra-Caribbean and AfriCaribbean payments are vital to accelerating trade and investment in the region. In this regard, AfriCaribbean and the central banks of the CARICOM have launched the Caribbean Payment and Settlement System, modeled after the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System promoted by AfriCaribbean in partnership with AFCFTA Secretariat and the African Union Commission to ensure regional trade payments in local currencies. The Caribbean Payment and Settlement System will eliminate costly currency conversions, facilitate faster transaction flows, and decolonize our payment ecosystem. As we speak, a pilot is underway involving central banks from across the region. Our objective is to bring every CARICOM country into this payment ecosystem and create seamless trade financing corridors. These corridors will link African and Caribbean SMEs to larger markets, enable e-commerce integration, and lower transaction costs. As we have seen in Africa, where utilization of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System is increasing by about 1,000% period on period, we will also launch a currency trading platform here in the CARICOM, which is similar to what we've also done in Africa. We also plan to launch the Caribbean Payment and Settlement System, the CAPS card, that will enable CARICOM citizens to spend their national currencies anywhere they visit in the CARICOM. As with Africa, we can also work with the stock exchange to enable investments in multiple jurisdictions using national currencies, thereby enhancing liquidity and access to long-term financing to businesses in the region. I can assure you that the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System is beginning to make massive changes on the continent. Increasingly, people are beginning to find the value. And I must thank the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, Barbados, and the Bahamas for agreeing to start the Caribbean Payment and Settlement System. We always start this initiative with the coalition of the willing. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System started with 5 countries in the West African Monetary Zone before it expanded to other parts of Africa. In the Caribbean, we already almost have half of the CARICOM states. So we see the opportunity for an accelerated growth of the system. And to support the technological advancement of our people, AfriCaribbean is supporting the PJ Potterson Institute for Africa-Caribbean Advocacy at the University of the West Indies to establish an Africa-Caribbean hub dedicated to the pioneering development of generative artificial intelligence. This initiative is not merely about technology, it is about harnessing the untapped potential of our regions, our rich natural resources, our brilliant minds, and our burgeoning digital networks. For too long, African and the Caribbean have been sidelined in the global narrative of technological advancements, particularly in the realm of cutting-edge artificial intelligence. As a bank, we've committed to changing this narrative, forging an ecosystem that not only stimulates economic growth, but also integrates our unique challenges and opportunities into the global technology landscape. And in the area of creatives, Through the Creative Africa Nexus, CANEX, we've also made strategic investments in fashion, film, music, culinary arts, and storytelling, showcasing Caribbean talent on global stages. In that regard, we are working with Studio 327 to develop a $24 million creative training and film production program for the OECS countries. Last year, we sponsored a historic musical collaboration called One Drum, bringing together Olodu of Brazil, Stephen Marley of Jamaica, Flavor of Nigeria, Maforiza of South Africa, and other legends, reinforcing our cultural ties. We also proudly supported Caribbean designers and brands, such as The Cloth from Trinidad and Tobago, Margot Wong from Guyana, and Kenya Union, and Kevinta from Jamaica, enabling their participation in prestigious international fashion shows, including Fashion Weeks in Paris, Portugal, and Tokyo. Through the CANES Book Factory, being implemented in partnership with Chimamanda Adichie, we have also championed an initiative to nurture Caribbean literary talents. The inaugural creative writing workshop, held in August 2024 in Aburi, Ghana, welcomed the emerging writers from St. Vincent and the Grenadines and St. Kitts and Nevis, nurturing new voices in global storytelling. Furthermore, through CANEX Weekend, we have also provided Caribbean chefs like Chef Natasha DeBock from Trinidad and Tobago and Chef Davisha Burrows from Barbados with opportunities to present Afro-Caribbean cuisine in some of the world's leading culinary showcases. We're also creating platforms for young professionals to exchange ideas, gain internships, and build businesses. Already, interns from Barbados, Guyana, Brazil, and Grenada have rotated through all the African Exporting Bank's offices across Africa. We encourage you to send your interns to this program. We've also expanded the program to include leading businesses in both Africa and the Caribbean, so that these young people can, with our support, intern in businesses they prefer. Your Excellencies, Honorable Prime Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, while we remain very proud of what we have achieved so far, we're also mindful that much more needs to be done. What we've done so far is prove the concept. We now need to institutionalize it. That is why I think we should consider creating a commission that becomes fully responsible for delivering on the Africa-Caribbean and the broader Global Africa Initiative. Such a commission should be sovereign, but still supported by AfriCaribbean, especially in the early stages. It must also be supported by the CARICOM and the African Union. This move will give more focus and impetus to the initiative, reduce the administrative burden on AfriCaribbean, and create an environment for innovation so that that commission can conceive and think widely beyond even what AfriCaribbean can contemplate. The commission should advance the sociocultural, creative, economic, and trade agenda of the initiative. It is such a commission that can more directly promote collaboration in education, science and technology, trade information, sports, other aspects of creative industry, and so on. Earlier this year, AfroSport, supported by AfriCaribbean, organized the first ever Unity Cup tournament in London. The game involved Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Ghana, and Nigeria. It was highly successful, an indication of the hunger for such events. There is no reason why an expanded Unity Cup involving many more countries cannot be organized. Today, people of African descent in both the continent and the diaspora, especially here in the Caribbean, dominate many aspects of field and track events globally. Is it not high time we thought of a Global Africa Athletics Championship or something of that sort? Why is it that in every endeavor, everywhere we turn, we are trapped? In the sports, we produce the talent, those who sweat in the field, but those who smile in air-conditioned offices with their huge bank accounts are not us. And nobody stops us from changing this. Because if you control the resources that produce the wealth, you must also control the wealth. If you do not control the wealth, then you're a fool. It will be the duty of that commission that I have in mind to push some of these initiatives through. We hope we can draw on the wisdom of our two great statesmen, His Excellency President Olusegun Obasanjo, Honorable P.J. Patterson, and George Byron, Dennis Byron, to guide us in these efforts. We also hope that the initiative can be endorsed by CARICOM and AU Commission and the AU itself at their joint summit in Addis Ababa in September 2025 to enable work towards the final establishment to commence. I also hope that when we decide to launch this initiative, that we do not launch it with lip service, that we launch it knowing that this is a platform for a collective future, a platform that we must support if we hope to turn things around for ourselves. As you all know, we have all been trapped for centuries. We are trapped by slavery when we thought we escaped slavery. We are trapped by colonialism. When we thought we escaped colonialism, we became trapped by neocolonialism. So it is also somebody who doesn't understand his condition and who is trapped, who thinks that the person who trapped him or her will come and release him. You must fight your way out. In addition, going forward, I think we must commit and take urgent steps to establish direct air and maritime links between Africa and the Caribbean. It is inconceivable that goods and people must travel through third countries, as Wankele mentioned, and then being asked very, very embarrassing questions to reach our respective shores. We must change this. But changing this, as I said earlier, has to be deliberate and strategic. Africans must prefer global Africa in what decisions they make about businesses. Whether the business is in the Caribbean or in the continent, you prefer your own people first. That's what everybody does. In everybody's mind, we are the last. America first means Africa last. Europe first means Africa last. China first means Africa last. We are the only one who put others first, and we remain last. I think we have to change it. Because when we do, and businesses start moving, trade starts moving, maritime links will start, and air links will start. But we can play a pioneering role, find ways that the states can work with our Afrexim Bank to support those who can take the risk to start these lines, especially the air bridge. Honorable Prime Ministers, Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in a few weeks, I'll be closing out my role as president of our Afrexim Bank. At the 32nd annual meeting of the bank held in Abuja a month ago, shareholders appointed my successor, Dr. George Elombi, who is here with us. And George, maybe if you can stand. Dr. Lombi is a long-serving member of staff of the bank, having been with us for approximately 29 years. I know that some have asked me, so when somebody takes over, will all this end? And before he was appointed, I hedged my responses. Now I can tell you it will even gain greater traction because Dr. Lombi has been a partner helping us to shape the vision that has unfolded through some of these initiatives, including the ACTIF and the work we are doing in the Caribbean. Congratulations again, George. At this critical moment in our collective history, I have no doubt that he is the right person to lead us in the next phase of the bank's journey. I'm convinced that he will give the bank's work in this region a renewed impetus. Thank you, Prime Ministers, heads of state and governments, the African Union Commission, the FCFTA Secretariat, CARICOM Secretariat, the private sector, our former leaders who continue to lead us, for giving us all your support, all the support we need to make all these efforts work. I hope you continue to accord your support, accord the bank their support under the new leadership that I just introduced. As I close, allow me to remind us that the Atlantic Ocean once carried our ancestors in chains. As we look ahead, we must now transform it from a grave of memory into a gateway of prosperity. Thank you, and may God bless the Caribbean, Africa, and the global Africa family we are forging together.
Thank you, everyone, for standing with me as we show our deepest appreciation to outgoing President, Professor Benedict Orama. And thank you for all the work you've done for AfriCaribbean Bank and, of course, the Caribbean community. And as you take this opportunity to stretch, please say hi to your neighbor. Say hi, tell them how you're doing. And I want to ask for a special, I'm not going to ask you to sing, but I'm going to ask you all on 3 to say happy birthday to Professor Benedict. He celebrated 4 days ago. So on 3, happy birthday. We're not singing, just a reminder. We're not singing, we're saying happy birthday, Professor Orama. We got it? Y'all ready? On 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, y'all don't know how to take instruction, but it's okay. You may have your seats, everyone. And thank you again, Professor Benedict. Final round of applause for outgoing president of the AfriCaribbean Bank. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for a cultural presentation by some of the most talented Grenadians entitled From Roots to Rise, The Spirit of Global Africa, a powerful, immersive performance that tells the story of a shared African and Caribbean identity, from struggle to strength, memory to movement, and history to horizon, bringing together the sweetest blend of drumming, spoken word, and Caribbean dance forms. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to the stage the graceful dancers of the Conception Dance Theatre, led by Ms. Cecilia Griffith and Mr. Keith Williams, the soulful performers of the Labukan Creative Center, and the dynamic drummers of the Lion Pride Percussions.
Our tale did not begin with chains. Our tale did not begin with massa. Quite the contrary, our tale began where kings and queens reigned over a land of richness and abundance, where life was bountiful and civilization thrived, kingdoms and tribes, community. That is where we began.
By the thousands they came from Europe, truth flowing from their mouth, a Bible as their spiritual guide, French, Spanish, English, side by side. They journeyed to Mama Africa, and our tale became grim and dark, a defining moment in our story arc.
Home, but a distant memory. A song to remind us of Mama Africa. And even in our disparity, our paths had much similarity. Colonialism, racism, exploitation, discrimination. Our paths different and still the same. A mother can really feel her children's pain.
How many more must carry this load? How many more before we trot down Zion's road? How many more? Say, woyo, 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 woyo.
Fast forward, and times have more than changed. But as we embrace this new faith, one thing rings true. Our growth cannot be separated from you. Mama Africa is reaching out, beckoning her children home. This return to her seems so natural because she lives in us. She lives in our music. She lives in our dance. She lives in our food, in the way we laugh, in the way we live, in the way we give, in the way we love. They took us out of Africa, but they could never take Africa out of us.
Let's give it up one more time for the Conception Dance Theatre, Labukan Creative Center, and of course the Lion Pride Percussions. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is my distinct honor to introduce a visionary leader whose commitment to national development, regional cooperation, and youth empowerment continues to inspire all of us. Since assuming office in 2022, he has championed the creative economy, digital technology, innovation, inclusive growth, and climate justice, positioning Grenada as a proactive voice in regional and global affairs. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada. The Prime Minister will take center stage before he delivers his feature address. Center stage. Today at this historic AfriCaribbean Forum, we celebrate not only economic ties, but ancestral truths, because true partnership begins with understanding who we are and where we come from. In a world too often divided, we are privileged to stand with a leader who understands that knowing where we come from gives us greater power in shaping where we go. It is a powerful thing when a nation's leader chooses to lead not just with policy, but with purpose, from the heart, from the heritage, and from history. In an act of unity and leadership, Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, has chosen to trace his African roots through African ancestry, not just as a personal journey for himself and his family, but as a symbol of reconnection for all Grenadians and the greater diaspora. This moment reminds us we are not strangers separated by sea, but family reunited and bonded by history, heritage, and resilience. And so it is with deep pride we now prepare to reveal the lineage that connects the Prime Minister to his ancestral country, an ethnic group in Africa. Let this moment echo beyond the walls. Africa and the Caribbean are one. And so I will be the judge. I will open the envelope. In the case of Deacon Mitchell, are you ready to welcome him home? In the case of the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, it says, welcome to the African Ancestry family. African Ancestry hereby certifies that Deacon Mitchell shares maternal genetic ancestry with Akan people living in Ghana. The Ghanaian people in the room, you say Akwaba, welcome to the Ghanaian family. All right, Prime Minister, welcome to the podium. You may now deliver your feature address.
Akwaba it is. Akwaba, Akwaba, Akwaba. Your Excellency Dame Cecile Lagrenade, Governor General of Grenada, distinguished colleague Prime Ministers from the Caribbean and from Africa, distinguished past presidents of both Nigeria and Niger, former prime ministers, and in particular our former Prime Minister, the Honorable Tillman Thomas, Secretary General of CARICOM, Director General of the OECS, my brother Wam Kelly, thank you for being here. Our Deputy Chairwoman of the AU, thank you for being here. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you all distinguished, and permit me therefore to use this as the protocol. It is with deep honor that I say Aqaba to Grenada. We are known as the Isle of Spice, where everything is nice. We are known as Pure Grenada, where you can recharge, reboot, and renew. And we are proud to host ACTIF 2025. We are proud to host ACTIF 4. We are in the Caribbean, where the Atlantic meets the Caribbean Sea, where our people greet each other with warmth, with resilience. And so we open our hearts and our minds to all our guests who are with us today. We open our minds and our hearts to the partnership, to the dialogue, and to the conversation about economic prosperity, wealth creation, trade, development, and ultimately the dignity of African people everywhere. And so today, we talk not just about Africa and the Caribbean, we speak of global Africa. And global Africa means Africa and its diaspora everywhere it is. So I want to start by recognizing and paying homage to the bridge builder, by paying tribute to a man whose vision has helped make this gathering and the deeper movement it represents possible, President Benedict Orama. He has not just talked about building bridges between Africa and the Caribbean. He has, to a large measure, single-handedly built the bridge brick by brick, with strategy, with integrity, and with relentless commitment. From trade agreements to investment forums like this one, from transportation dialogue to digital cooperation. His leadership at the Frexim Bank has carved out a space where our regions can meet, trade, collaborate, and thrive. And as Prime Minister Roosevelt said to you last evening, in the annals of history, you will go down, sir, as a pioneer for all African people everywhere. And so we thank you for leading, but not just leading, but by inviting others to lead alongside you. And so this morning, Prime Minister Skerrit suggested, and I have concurred, and I know many of the other CARICOM leaders will concur, in recommending to the CARICOM Secretariat that the CARICOM region confers upon you its highest award, the Order of the Caribbean Community. And I look forward and therefore, with the concurrence of the incoming chairman, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, I look forward to him conferring this order anew at the next sitting of the Caribbean community in St. Kitts and Nevis. But as I'm sure President Orama will agree with me, this bridge building is not a one-man show. The onus must be on all of us, whether we are large or small, whether we are humongous or tiny, whether we lead nations or we lead startup companies, to carry the bridge building forward. We must commit collectively and individually to continuously closing the gap between our two regions, not just geographically, not just diplomatically, not just in spirit. We must do so commercially, practically, with systems and with institutions. And I say this because President Orama remarked in his speech, and he said so last night, there's no point to being famous but poor. There's no point to political independence and poverty. There's no point to music and dance and theater, but no food, no energy, no healthcare, no education, no infrastructure. So for far too long, we have focused on political independence, on sovereignty, on borders, on parliaments, on governance, on the judiciary, but not on business, not on wealth, not on our economies, not on the protection and the dignity of our people. So a young man, a friend of my son, who's volunteering as an usher at this conference, asked me yesterday, why am I bringing this conference to Grenada? So I will not speak in usual diplomatic political language about geopolitical tensions and fragmentation. I will speak as the layman speak. It is about money. It is about business. It is about trade. It is about investment. Because as painful as it is for us to accept, the dichotomy shown on the screen by the picture that represented our ancestors being traded from Africa to the Caribbean, and the container ship that shows goods being traded to and from Africa and the Caribbean is making the same point. It is about trade. And so, to that young man, we are bringing the conference to Grenada. It is the fourth. The first started by President Orama and our dear sister and global leader, the Honorable Mia Amor Motley of Barbados, 4 years ago, and continued then successively by our dear brother, President Ali, and the Honorable Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Prime Minister Davis, because we all recognize that we must institutionalize, resource, and support forums like ACTIF to ensure that that young man who spoke to me yesterday understands that the very survival, prosperity, and dignity of him and his peers depends on the economic decisions we make today about the need to foster closer economic and trading ties between Africa and its diaspora. So it means, for his benefit and his generation, that the longing of admiring Africa and Caribbean and the Caribbean from afar was put to an end by President Urama. The time for admiration, emotion, and aspiration was turned into actualization, into action, into investment, into financing, and into impact. And what does that impact look like? And repetition is good, because we've heard it from all our speakers. It looks like direct shipping routes connecting African and Caribbean ports and lifting visa restrictions. And we may doubt whether this will happen. I'm sure 4 years ago, many doubted whether we would have an ACTIF. I'm sure 4 years ago, many doubted whether the AfriCaribbean Bank would have been financing over $3.5 billion to Caribbean businesses. I'm sure many doubted whether the AfriCaribbean Bank would be building its Caribbean headquarters in Bridgetown, Barbados. But in the span of under 4 years, it is all happening. And so too, the shipping lines between Africa, the Caribbean, Central and South America, and the airlines can, and if I have anything to do with it, must and will happen. So too, harmonized trade standards that allow our goods and services to move freely. It looks like digital marketplaces that enable our artisans or creatives or small and medium enterprises to sell, scale, and succeed. It looks like youth exchange programs already started by AfriCaribbean Bank, already started by Dangote Industries that allows young men and women from the Caribbean the opportunity to go to Egypt or Nigeria to share, to learn, and to experience, and to change their mindsets about how Africa businesses are viewed. It looks like co-investing in agriculture, manufacturing, fintech, and clean energy, where we are not competitors, but co-creators. We must not forget that Africa and the Caribbean face many of the same existential challenges. Climate change. Brothers and sisters, on the 1st of July last year, 2 days before we were supposed to host the CARICOM conference in Grenada, a Category 4 hurricane called Beryl ravaged the Caribbean. It destroyed almost everything in our sister islands of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. It did considerable damage to the coast, and in particular the fishing industry in Barbados. And with raging appetite, headed to Jamaica and continued its destruction there, particularly in the agriculture sector, all in a matter of 48 hours. But you know what? With the support of our partners, with the support of our colleagues in CARICOM, with the support of the AfriCaribbean Bank, whose regional representative flew down to Grenada and flew with me to Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and who, through the guidance of President Urama, provided direct financial assistance in the form of a grant to the government and people of Grenada, we were able to still host our CARICOM Heads of Conference meeting in July, right here in this very room. And so 1 year later, we are here hosting ACTIF. It could have been easy to say, we're a small island. We don't have the capacity or the capability. But, and as you heard from the former Vice President of Nigeria, size is not the determinant of your destiny. Size is not the determinant of your importance. And if we take our body parts as any indication, the smallest parts of our body our eyes, our ears, our mouth, our nose are perhaps the most crucial and pivotal for the functioning of our large organs. And so, yes, the small size of the Caribbean does not in any way take away from its pivotal and strategic importance to global trade. It was pivotal when our ancestors were brought across the Atlantic in slave trading vessels. And it is even more pivotal now to the growth and development of global Africa. And so we possess common strength in our people, in our culture that was so vividly on display, and in our enduring spirit. If we can unite on trade, we can unite on advocacy. If we can unite on common trade standards, we can share strategies. If we can move capital and finance, we can move mindsets. So as we look to deepen our economic ties, we must also embrace the reality that the future of trade, entrepreneurship, and development will largely be driven by digital technologies. And so in my capacity as CARICOM lead head for science and technology and ICT, I cannot understate the urgency and the importance of technology in reshaping all our lives within global Africa. It is redefining how we trade, how we govern, and how we must build prosperity. Africa and the Caribbean are both blessed with a young, talented, and entrepreneurial population. Africa's advancement in mobile technology, fintech, and ICT infrastructure, when paired with the Caribbean's digital creativity, tourism, and innovation, presents a real and immediate opportunity for collaboration and sustained growth. So in Grenada, we are moving with two flagship initiatives that will speak to the heart of this digital transformation. I proposed yesterday to President Orama the Caribbean Institute for Digital and Creative Industries, which we propose will be a world-class innovation, training, research institution dedicated to empowering our region's creatives, technologists, and entrepreneurs. We do not see this as a project, but as a platform to develop talent, preserve culture, and assert our digital and cultural sovereignty. With the bank's partnership, with the partnership of our businessmen and women, our creatives, we can make a regional lighthouse for global digital excellence. Second, we often forget the foundational importance of financial literacy. Throughout Africa and throughout the Caribbean, financial literacy ranks amongst the lowest. It is therefore essential that as we host initiatives like ACTIF, that we take the time and we put the resources to ensure that we educate our young men and women in financial literacy. And so in Grenada, we aim, and we have already started, to equip, at least over the next 2 years, all our young men and women with the tools necessary to make sure that they understand financial literacy, that they possess the financial skills for the digital age. From budgeting and credit to digital banking and entrepreneurship, we will roll out a program that we believe can be a blueprint for global Africa in ensuring that the next generation of global African citizens are well equipped to function, succeed in a digital financial world. We intend to deliver this through a mobile-first platform accessible to all global Africans. So we invite the bank, its partners, the business leaders, the entrepreneurs, our central banks, our development banks, to recognize the critical role that financial literacy can and should play in ensuring that we build business leaders, entrepreneurs, creatives, to ensure we function successfully in a digital economy that is inclusive, resilient, and Afro-Caribbean designed for our people. In this journey, the bank has not just been a financier. It has been and will continue to be a partner in delivering progress, a catalyst for systems change, a vehicle for South-South solidarity. So we welcome and support the bank's continued efforts to expand trade credit, seed innovation, and champion economic sovereignty for global Africa. But we must all do our part. And therefore, we welcome and will support the creation of a Global Africa Commission, resourced and institutionalized, to support the many initiatives that global Africans require. And the example of the Global Africa Track and Field event is one such example that I'm sure all CARICOM countries will be vying to host. I've already put up Grenada's hand to do so. But since we expect it will be successful and not a one-off, we look forward to all our CARICOM brothers and sisters hosting our African brothers and sisters in such a championship. We look forward to our CARICOM citizens visiting many of the African states to take part and to support and to cheer on such an initiative. And I stop here to indicate that it is revolutionary ideas like these that will excite our young people. When we leave this forum, we must be able to explain to that young man what is the outcome of all this fuss and sirens and blocking of the roads. He must know that him or his friend or his cousin is going to one day have the opportunity to take part in the Global Africa Track and Field event, whether in Kigali or Bridgetown, or NASA, or Abuja. Because for far too long, many of our entertainers and creatives have become famous but poor. Well-known but economically weak. And so we owe it to our young men and women to ensure that we let them know that there is a warfare going on out there. It is economic warfare. There are fancy economic terms for calling it: protectionism, tariffs, increased cost of visas, etc., etc. It is about me first, and as Professor Orama said, someone else last. So no one is going to save global Africa, but global Africa itself. And so to that young man, I conclude by saying, and I speak on behalf of all of the leaders of CARICOM, that our political will to support global Africa is unwavering. That we recognize that we are in a seminal moment, but that we are not starting from scratch. We are starting from strength. The history we share together is not a weight, it is a wind behind our sails. So we are not going to leave this forum with just another communique. We will leave with a compact, a commitment to act, to implement, and to transform. We will prove that when Africa and its diaspora trade together, do business together, we will succeed together and we will rise together. I welcome you to St. George's, Grenada. I welcome you to Global Africa. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell. I think he forgot his ancestry. It's going to follow you, sir, the rest of your life. Thank you once again, Prime Minister, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I'd like to invite the heads of government to come up for your family photo. I'd like to take this opportunity as well to recognize in our midst His Excellency Dr. Agbu Kifas, Executive Governor of Taraba State. Our heads are very excited. Thank you so much for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. We move right along with our first presidential panel. And again, there will be lots of time for chit-chat and coffee and photographs. So I'd like to invite our heads to take their seats once more as we get ready for this first presidential panel. Before we move, I'd like to also invite Dr. George Ilombe, Executive Vice President, to make his opening remarks and we move to the panel discussion. As Dr. Ilombe comes to the podium,